welcome to Weekly Reddit. In today's episode of r/Entitled Parents, I got out of the hospital and Em sent me right back. My auntie expects me to give back a cookbook our grandma gave to me 10 years ago, after less than 4 days after grandma passed away. My mum used my hard-earned money buy designers for herself, my biological parents today. I got out of the hospital and Em sent me right back. Cast: M, entitled Mom. Dad, my father. NM, named Mom. Me, a new stepdad. I just got out of the hospital for extensive knee surgery, and walking out the door of the hospital reminded me of this story. Important things to note. 1. I have a severe allergy to cashews. It's bad enough that 1/100th of one will kill me if I'm not treated properly and quickly. Nowadays I always make sure to have an EpiPen on at all times, but when this story took place, I was a little more forgetful about it. I was 9, leave me alone, and didn't always have it. 2. I have asthma, which can be a pretty lousy combination with anaphylaxis. 3. At the time of this story, my dad was working for a company that treated him like garbage and wouldn't give him time off for anything except medical emergencies pretty much. 4. This story starts about 4 days before my 10th birthday. Story: a week before my birthday, my dad's boss told him he was going to San Francisco for work stuff. We lived in Denver at the time, which meant my dad was going to miss my birthday. It was upsetting, but I understood, and he said we'd have a party once he got back. While he was gone, my brother and I were staying with Em. At the time, we knew she was a little entitled, but my dad trusted her to take care of us. On day 3 of my dad's trip, my brother and I were playing in their living room when Em offered us some granola bars as a snack. At the time, I was young and wasn't very cautious, so I didn't always read ingredients for things I was eating. Unfortunately, there were cashews in the granola bar, so when I took the first bite, I started to feel it pretty quickly after. Within minutes I was throwing up everywhere, in severe pain, and my throat was closing up. And as if it couldn't get worse, that was when I realized I had forgotten my EpiPen. Then, the panic and closing airways triggered an asthma attack. And I also didn't have my inhaler. So, at that point, CB calls an ambulance and I pass out on the floor. The paramedics were able to keep me from dying of the combination of anaphylactic shock and asthma attack, but I did end up slipping into a coma for 11 days. This meant I was in a coma on my birthday, but I guess that was probably pretty low on the list of concerns, considering they weren't 100% sure I was going to make it out of the coma. So, a week after my birthday, I finally wake up. At first, I was fairly calm about waking up in a hospital. Until I found out that I had been in a coma for 11 days. At which point I started panicking and almost gave myself another asthma attack. Anyway, they kept me there for a few days just to make sure I was okay and it was safe for me to go home. So, we finally get home, and as soon as I walk in I see my brother, my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle, my 2 cousins, Em, and NM and her kids, who my brother and I are good friends with, as well as a big sign that reads "Happy Birthday and Welcome Back, the Land of the Living." They had planned a surprise birthday party for me once they found out I was out of the coma. So, we went about doing birthday party things and hanging out. I got some questions from my brother and cousins about the coma, while NM bakes my cake. However, the only important thing that was happening at this time was the following conversation between Em and NM. NM: man, that must have been terrifying for him to go into that coma. I mean, imagine having to be that careful about everything you eat. EM: oh, don't tell me you buy all of that. NM: what? EM: he was clearly faking it to get attention. Everyone knows that asthma and allergies aren't real. NM: both of those are very real and very serious problems. EM: whatever. You sheeple are just too stupid to see through the government's lies. Then Em just wandered off. I feel it's important to note that at this time, the birthday cake had just been put in the oven and this conversation happened in the living room, which did not have a line of sight into the kitchen. After a while, the cake finally finished baking and we all congregated in the dining room to eat it. So, everyone sang happy birthday to me and my aunt cut the cake and gave everyone a slice. I was about to take the first bite when the luckiest thing that could have happened. I dropped my fork on the floor. At this point, I, wanting to act all grown up and solve my own problems, decided I'd go into the kitchen and clean the fork myself. Right as I finish and start walking back out to the dining room when I hear my dad yell, "What the fuck did you just say?" I run out to see what's going on and see my dad standing up staring daggers at Em while she cowered in fear of him. Whimpering the eye it was for his own good. It turned out that after the conversation between Em and Em had snuck into the kitchen and poured most of a bag of mixed nuts that she had brought with her into the cake. Dad slams his hand on the table. How the fuck is that for his own good? Em starts to gain some confidence as she doesn't see a problem with what's happening. Well, if he had eaten the cake without knowing they were there, he wouldn't have been able to fake a reaction because he wouldn't have known that there was anything in the cake to react to. Dad, what the actual fuck is wrong with you? I was trying to prove to you sheeple that Dad, I knew inviting you here was a mistake. I figured it was good for the boys to have you in their lives, but you've made it abundantly clear that it is not. So what are you saying? Dad, I'm saying, get the fuck out of my house and stay the fuck away from my kids. You can't do that. They're my kids too. That's right everyone. Em was my actual mom. Dad, not after what you just pulled, they're not. And if you want to take this to court, I'll make sure that you aren't even allowed in the same state as them. Now get the fuck out of my house before I call the cops. You just wait until my father hears about this. Her dad is very wealthy, so I think she was expecting him to help her get custody of my brother and me. We found out later that not only did her boyfriend break up with her and kick her out of his house, but when her dad found out about what she did, he refused to let her live with him, stopped giving her money, and said that if she took my dad to court, he would support my dad. As you can expect, she never took us to court. And as for the rest of the party, we just bought a new cake because nobody wanted to take the time to bake another one. We also decided to just throw out the pan we had used for the first one because she had put so many nuts in it that we were worried about it contaminating anything we put in it after that. My auntie expects me to give back a cookbook our grandma gave to me 10 years ago, after less than 4 days after grandma passed away. So my grandma gave me this cookbook that has been passed down 4 generations in the family, making me the 5th to have it. She gave it to me when I got a house and started university. 10 years ago. My auntie was in the room when it was given to. My one cousin was jealous because she thought she deserved it as I didn't spend as much time with grandma living far away. If Hitler, Stalin, and Martha Stewart had a threesome, my auntie is the product. She's the most emotionally abusive person I've ever met and hates my mom for finding real love and remarrying after she got divorced. She expected my mom never to even date again like her. Well, in December my grandma passed away on my birthday. She was my idol and role model and she loved me and I loved her so dearly. I was the last person she remembered before her Alzheimer's took over completely. Well, not even 3 days later I find out my auntie is looking for this book and demands it so she can make copies for the entire family. My oldest cousin thinks it's her birthday, right, and my other girl cousin just had a baby so she thinks she deserves it so she can pass it down to her little girl because I can't have kids. I'm having a hysterectomy this next month. I've told them all to fuck off. Grandma gave this to me 10 years ago. Before she got sick. Before I got sick. Not that that matters. She gave it to me and I don't have to give it over to anyone for any reason. Not even roommates were allowed to touch this book. None of them are speaking to me now, and I'm really fucking mad. I'm so disappointed over their entitled feelings and throwing it at me that I can't have kids. I turned 27 the day my grandma died. I want kids. I just can't medically have them. No one is getting this book. She gave it to me and she was the only person to ever accept me as family. I miss my grandma. I wish I understood the meaning of family. What's written sounds bizarre to me and I want to feel those good feelings. Just to clarify, I'm hurt because they won't speak to me. They're speaking to everyone else instead of me. I haven't heard once from this auntie, but she said everything to my mum and hurt my mom so much more, and my mom had to relay it to me thinking I had stole the cookbook because my mum and I weren't talking when my grandma gave me the book 10 years ago. So I either never told her or it was so minor back then she forgot I had it. I don't have any respect for people who talk to others about a problem but not to the person who is the only one that can rectify the problem. She shouldn't have involved my mom. Edit. Wow, thank you so much for the love. I'm doing my best to reply to everyone but my arthritis in my hands is laughing at me. The book is extremely delicate so it can't be copied unless painstakingly by hand. This book came from her great-grandmother, my great-great-great-great-grandmother, from England on the boat with her to Canada. I've been working on making a copy of it digitally already for years but it's massive. It has sections in it about meat cuts, canning, and even table settings which way the knife blade should point. It also has every generation's writing in it as they scored recipes. I remember crying the first time I got to mark my first recipe as excellent. My auntie was in the room when my grandma gave it to me the first time. It's been 10 years and I've spoken less than a few sentences to that douche canoe because of things she did to me when I lived with her for a short while. I'm not spending any time giving anything to her. She also didn't even ask me herself but did it in a way that it demanded my mom make me give it back. After explaining to my mom she agreed with me. PS update on decision, venting and all the opinions that were well expressed has given me really good ideas on how to safely copy, digitize the book and to preserve it when I can afford to. So when I find a store to do it I'm going to have copies made for each of my cousins only for next year on the date, a birthday present from me to everyone in memory of the best person I had the honor of knowing. If her auntie wants a copy, she can borrow one of her kids' versions to go copy. I'm not going out of my way for her, but I do really respect this gift and won't covet it and it be lost to the family. I'm also going to leave out a few pages of the book that have the recipes that are my favorite and I'm known for them specifically for because they are so amazing and I want just one thing to be mine and grandma's. I think that's a more than reasonable compromise for all the work I'll be taking on to afford the process. Nothing crazy. Like 5 pages only, the book is hundreds of pages long. My mum used my hard-earned money by designers for herself. My parents have never given me allowance for anything so without asking them I got a part-time job after school at a restaurant where I earned $5 per hour. I worked for 2 hours every day after school from 5:45 to 8 p.m. They knew I had gotten a job so they didn't say much of anything. My mum asked me a few questions and would be curious to learn more but that was it. After a few months I had saved around $800 which is a lot for me and I was planning to continue my saving until my mom asked me how much I had earned and asked me to let her save it in her account as it would be safer. I said okay. Afterwards I saw her buy a few designers and asked her if she had spent my money to which she replied I have spent thousands on you by growing you up, so what if I spent your money? Just earn it back again. I started bawling my eyes out, not out of sadness but pure frustration that my hard work and hard-earned money has now been washed away because of my mom. She feels entitled to my money and my dad didn't say anything to her about it. She refuses to return it and thinks I'm acting like a brat and told me if I continued this way she's going to ground me and take away all my devices. WTF? I currently have around $80 in Bitcoin and I'm going to start saving again, but without my entitled mom knowing. However, I'm so extremely upset because I have to start from the beginning again. FYI, my family isn't rich, so $800 is a lot of money to us, and there is no way she will ever return it to me. For anyone that's optimistic enough to think that my mum's the kind to save it for me. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone except for myself. I can't wait to get out of this house at 18. Using a throwaway account because my friends know my real Reddit account and I wouldn't want them to see this rant. Too long did not read. Mum spent my hard-earned money on designer and said she would ground me for asking her to pay me back. Met my biological parents today. So for some backstory, I am adopted. My biological parents, BP, gave me up at birth. My adopted parents, AP, adopted me when I was young but was always open about my adoption and everything. They never kept anything about it away from me and always told me the truth when I had questions about my adoption. I never had too many questions about my adoption though, as I just wanted to believe that my AP were the people who gave birth to me. I, 16F, had the opportunity to meet my BP the other day. It was my choice whether I wanted to or not, and I decided to meet them. I thought that maybe there was a chance that my BP weren't heartless, and that maybe they were just falling on hard times and couldn't support a child, and that now they were doing better and wanted to actually form a bond with me. How wrong I was. My BP and my AP talk it out and set up a date and time to meet up, and my AP relayed it all to me to make sure I was okay with everything. For the most part I was just agreeing with everything because I was nervous not to make a bad first impression. After a little bit of talking and discussing, a time and date had been settled on. Directly 2 weeks from now at a restaurant called Texas Roadhouse, the fanciest restaurant we have where I live. A week before I have to go meet my BP, my adopted mom, AM, took me shopping at the mall for some new clothes. I've never been too fond of dresses and stuff, and my AM knew this, and so instead of taking to some place like Kohl's or Claire's, she took me to Hot Topic and Spencer's, where we found a couple fancy things that I liked and that we thought my BP would like as well. Some time had passed and I was getting ready to meet my BP. I put on the clothes and hop into my AP car so that they could take me. The plan was that my AP would drop me off and they would hang around the area so that if something happened they could get to me quickly if something happened. We get there, and after a small pep talk from my AP we go into the restaurant and meet my BP. Right off the bat, as my BP looked at me, they mumbled stuff under their breath which I can only assume was about my outfit. My BP themselves looked like your typical snooty rich parents, as they were decked out in all type of jewelry, fancy clothes, etc. Already I was getting a bad vibe from them. We greet, and after like a minute my AP leaves so that me and my BP could eat and get to know each other. So me and my BP get escorted to a table and sit down. A couple seconds pass and my biological mother, BM, says something. BM: so how are you liking your life so far? Me: it's good. It's good. My biological dad, BD, then chirps in. BD: tell us about it. Me: there's not much to tell you about. I live as I presume any normal child would. BM: okay. Do you have a BF? I froze at this question. I am lesbian, and although I normally am not afraid to show it, you was this time. My BP looked like very judgmental people and I didn't want to have a bad first impression. After a couple seconds of silence I give the best answer I could. No. I told I didn't have a BF, which technically wasn't lying. The rest of the day goes pretty much exactly like this, just with a couple typical Karen things thrown in by my mom. She would constantly snap and call over waiters, treat the staff like crap, etc. All of this was pretty bad and I wanted to call my AP and leave, but for whatever reason decided not to. An hour or two of awkward entitlement pass, and just as I was about to finish my food my BP say something I will never forget. BM: Op, we need your help with something. You have a biological brother who is currently in the hospital. He got into a car crash a couple days before we contacted you. He needs a kidney transplant and your dad and I have both offered our powers, but we weren't matches. The only person who does have a match is you. We hope you're willing to give up your kidney for your brother. This broke me. I knew why they all of a sudden wanted to meet up with me. They didn't want to form a relationship with me or get to know me. They wanted to use me to save their actual son. I did not know I had a brother. At that point I frankly did not care. I told them no. They abandoned me as a child, and 16 years later they want me to save a brother I never knew existed. I told them no and walked out. I walked out of the restaurant and called my AP. My real parents. I told them to come pick me up and they said they were at the Target right next door to me and said to wait in the car or come look for them in the store. I opted for the car. I didn't want to be around anyone at that point, so I just walked and searched for my AP car. My BP probably came after me, but I don't know that for sure, as when I left the restaurant driveway I didn't look back. After about 20 minutes in the car crying, my AP come and immediately noticed that I was crying despite my best efforts to hide it. They asked what was wrong and I told them everything. They seemed just as as I was, but comforted and consoled me the time. I'm glad I'm adopted. Cause as far as I'm concerned, my real and only parents are my adopted ones.
Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up with the best content from Reddit.